Hi, I'm Emmanuel Gales. I'm an audiovisual media producer and media business owner. BJK Production is bringing me in to teach about video post-production and showcase how the BJK tools can be useful in your videos. Today, I'll be teaching you how to install a LUT pack in Adobe Premiere Pro and Apple Final Cut Pro. And I'll show you how to apply a LUT to a video once your LUTs are installed in your video editing software. If you don't already have LUTs on your computer that are waiting to be installed, you can buy LUTs on the BJK Production website. Or, if you want to get your hands on some free LUTs, then go check out the last video we posted here on the BJK Production YouTube channel. In that video, which is linked in the description below, we gave away a free LUT pack. It should still be available for free if you go watch that video. Once you've downloaded a LUT pack, this is how you install it in your video editing software of choice. By the way, you can use chapters in this video to skip to the section that applies to the video editing software you use. There are 3 ways to get a LUT into Premiere Pro. You can load a LUT directly to an individual clip in the timeline, but you'll have to navigate to the LUT's location on your computer every time you apply the LUT to a clip. You can install the LUTs into the Premiere Pro application on your computer. This way you won't have to re-specify the LUT's location on your computer every time you apply the LUT to a clip. However, every time you update the Premiere Pro application, you'll have to reinstall all your LUTs into the Premiere Pro app. And if you export your video using Adobe Media Encoder, you may also have to install the LUTs within the Media Encoder app. Finally, you can install the LUTs in a special folder that Premiere Pro will load automatically whenever you open the application. This way, you can quickly access your LUTs every time you use Premiere Pro, even if Premiere has updated since you last used it. This is the method of installing LUTs, which I will demonstrate here. To install LUTs this way, you place the LUTs in either the Creative folder or Technical folder, which are subfolders within the LUTs folder that is within the Common folder of the main Adobe folder on your computer. That was kind of a mouthful. Let's go over that in detail. Assuming you have already downloaded compatible LUTs and you know where the LUTs are on your computer, next we need to locate the appropriate folders to place those LUTs in. First, we need to find the main Adobe folder on your computer system. On Mac, the main Adobe folder is usually located somewhere inside the operating system hard drive or SSD. The drive inside your Mac that runs the operating system is called Macintosh HD by default, but some people like to rename this drive. Inside your main operating system drive, Macintosh HD typically, go to the Library folder and then the Application Support folder. The main Adobe folder should be located in here. On a PC running Microsoft Windows as the operating system, the main Adobe folder is usually located on the local disk C drive, inside the Program Files folder. As long as you have Adobe programs including Premiere Pro installed on your computer in the normal way, these are the places to look for the main Adobe folder, whether you're on Mac or PC. Here's the file path on screen with Mac and PC versions of the path. That path should guide you to this main Adobe folder that we're locating. Once you're at the main Adobe folder and you know how to get back to it in case you lose it, go inside that main Adobe folder and find the Common folder that's inside. Click to go inside that Common folder. Inside the Common folder, look for a folder called LUTs. If there isn't a LUTs folder, then you'll need to create one. You might have to enter your computer's password in order to create this LUTs folder. Make sure LUTs is spelled correctly and capitalized just the way it's shown on screen here. Once you've located the LUTs folder or created it, go inside the LUTs folder. Inside the LUTs folder, it may be empty or it may have 2 folders in it already. One called Technical and one called Creative. If the Technical and Creative folders are already there within the LUTs folder, great. If not, then you'll need to create them and you may have to enter your password in order to create them. These are 2 separate folders within the LUTs folder, one called Technical and one called Creative. Create them if they're not there already. And make sure you spell and capitalize these folders correctly as seen on screen if you're creating them yourself. Okay, great work, we're close. You found the main Adobe folder. You've gone into the main Adobe folder and found the common folder. Inside the common folder, you found or created the LUTs folder, and inside the LUTs folder, you found or created the technical and creative folders. Now we just need to put your LUTs into the appropriate folder. If you have technical LUTs for converting one type of color format into another color format, put a copy of those LUTs into the technical folder. If you have creative LUTs for stylizing the look of your video, put a copy of those LUTs into the creative folder. Congratulations! That's about it for installing LUTs in Premiere Pro. If Premiere is already running in the background on your computer, then you'll need to quit Premiere and reopen it in order for the LUTs to show up. If Premiere is not running already, then the LUTs should be available after you open Premiere Pro and it finishes loading. So, let's just review the installation process. You already have Adobe Premiere Pro installed on your computer. You've got some LUTs that you want to install. If you've just downloaded a LUT pack, they will probably be in your computer's Downloads folder. LUTs are stored as files with a .cube file extension. When you have your LUTs located, open a new file browsing window, follow the appropriate file path to locate the main Adobe folder. In the Adobe folder, go to the Common folder, then the LUTs folder, and then you'll find the Technical and Creative folders that you put your .cube LUTs in, depending on which type of LUT they are. If the LUTs folder with Technical and Creative subfolders was not inside the Common folder already, then you'll need to create those folders appropriately. And there you go. Relaunch Premiere Pro and your LUTs should be available to apply to your videos in the timeline. Now you can skip to the section of this video that talks about applying LUTs once they are installed. To install a LUT in Final Cut Pro, apply the custom LUT effect to a video clip in the timeline, access the settings for the custom LUT effect in the inspector, click the LUT drop-down menu and select Choose Custom LUT. Let's go over that in detail. Open a Final Cut Pro project. If you don't have a video clip in the timeline already, then add a clip to the timeline now. Then, go to the Effects browser and search for Custom LUT. Apply the Custom LUT effect to the video clip in your timeline. You can do this by dragging and dropping the Custom LUT effect onto the video clip. Next, open the Video Inspector. Make sure the clip you applied the Custom LUT effect to is selected in the timeline. After the clip is selected and the Custom LUT effect is applied to the clip, the Custom LUT settings will appear in the Video Inspector. Inside the Custom LUT settings, select the LUT drop-down menu. Here, you will see any LUTs you have already installed in Final Cut Pro. To install a new LUT, select Choose Custom LUT from the bottom of this drop-down menu. In the window that opens up, navigate to the part of your computer where you've saved your LUTs and select the LUTs you want to install. Set the input color space and the output color space to Rec 709. I've never needed to choose a setting other than Rec 709 in this menu, even if I'm installing a technical LUT to convert log footage into Rec 709. Just choose Rec 709 for both these settings unless you really know what you're doing and have a specific reason to choose a different setting. One of the really nice features in Final Cut Pro is that you can install a whole folder that contains a collection of LUTs. This really helps to organize your LUTs so they're easy to find while you're editing. If you've purchased a LUT pack, or if you have several LUTs which you want to keep together as a group, just make sure all these LUTs are inside a folder. Then, in this window, select the folder instead of selecting the LUTs individually. Once you've selected a single LUT, several LUTs, or a folder containing LUTs that you want to store together as a group, Just click Open and your LUTs will be installed. Congratulations! That's it. You've installed your LUTs in Final Cut Pro. Now you can skip to the section of this video that talks about applying a LUT to your footage after the LUTs are installed. This is how you apply LUTs to your video clips in Premiere Pro after you've already installed your LUTs. I'm in the Edit tab of Premiere Pro, and I'm using the Color workspace. If the layout of the various panels in Premiere Pro doesn't look like this, try using the Color workspace. All right, here's my footage. I'm going to select the video clip that I'm working with, and now I need to decide whether I'm using a technical LUT or a creative LUT. In this case, I shot the footage on a professional cinema camera in a special color mode called log. Technical LUTs are used to convert log footage into footage that will look normal on an ordinary computer screen. I have some special LUTs on my computer that will do this conversion for me. To use a technical LUT, I'm going to hide the creative section of the Lumetri color panel and open up the basic section of the Lumetri color panel. Then I'm going to go to this input LUT section. I'm going to click the drop-down menu and I'm going to select the appropriate technical LUT to convert my footage. In this case, that's going to be the official Sony LC709 LUT for the Sony cinema camera that I used to shoot this footage. As you can see, applying that technical LUT takes the special cinema camera color mode and converts it into a normal color mode that we call Rec 709. This is some pretty advanced technical stuff. Now, let me show you how to use a creative LUT on ordinary footage. To apply a creative LUT, go to the creative section of the Lumetri color panel. Then, go to the look section and toggle the drop-down menu. Since this section is titled Look, we know that the people who created the Adobe Premiere program decided to refer to creative LUTs as looks. So, in Premiere Pro terminology, we're not using a creative LUT, we're using a look. All right, let's select our creative LUT or look. I'm going to try out the 35mm look LUT or look from BJK Production, which is part of their 20 cinematic 4K color grading LUTs LUT pack. Wow, that made a big difference in the look of our image instantaneously. Let's scrub through this video clip and see how that LUT looks as the footage plays. It can be helpful to view the footage in full screen. To do that, select the viewer panel and press the tilde key on your keyboard. That's the squiggly line that looks like a warped version of a dash. This key is usually located right underneath the escape key. Now, let's play that footage again. The footage definitely looks stylized with this LUT applied to it. I'm going to press the tilde key again to go back to the normal viewing experience. Throughout my editing and color grading process, I'll go back and forth between toggling the expanded viewing mode for the viewer panel. Now let's take a look at one of our other video clips. Here I've got some footage of a lady riding a bicycle. Let's go ahead and select that clip. As you can see, this video clip was also shot in that special cinema camera color mode. In fact, all of the clips in my timeline were shot in that mode. Let me show you a trick on how to quickly apply the same color adjustments to a whole bunch of different clips in your timeline. That's going to help speed up your editing process. I'm going to use what's called an adjustment layer. Now, I've already created an adjustment layer for my project, but let me show you how you would create one. Go ahead in one of your bins or in the main project section here, right-click on the empty space, hover over New Item, and select Adjustment Layer. Make sure the settings for the adjustment layer match the settings of your project in your timeline. Hit OK, and it will create an adjustment layer. Now I've got two adjustment layers that are identical since I had one already, so I'm going to undo and just use the original one that I created. Now I'm going to drag the adjustment layer onto the second video track in the timeline. An adjustment layer is kind of like a blank video clip. What's great is you can apply effects to an adjustment layer, and those effects will apply to all of the footage that's underneath the adjustment layer. I want to use this adjustment layer to apply effects, in fact, apply LUTs to the footage that's underneath the adjustment layer, and I want to do that for all the footage in my timeline. So I'm going to drag out this adjustment layer so that it covers all of the clips in my timeline. I've actually got a couple adjustment layers over here that I was playing with before I started recording this video. I'm going to leave those alone and just go back and look at this main section here. So I've got my adjustment layer selected, and whatever effects or adjustments I make to the adjustment layer will appear on all the video clips that are underneath the adjustment layer. The adjustment layer covers all the clips in my timeline, so whatever changes I make to the adjustment layer will be applied to all the video clips in the timeline. Since we're using an adjustment layer to impact all the clips in the timeline, I'm going to go ahead and remove the effects and adjustments that we applied to this individual clip. So I'm just going to go ahead and toggle off the creative and basic adjustment effects in the Lumetri color panel, because that's the only changes we made to this clip. Now let's go to the adjustment layer and make those same adjustments. The creative and basic corrections, and in fact all the different options in the Lumetri color panel are enabled by default, but I'm going to turn these off just to stay organized. I'm going to go to the basic correction, and just like before, I'm going to apply that lookup table that's going to convert the footage from the cinema camera color mode into a normal color space. If you're a beginner, you probably don't need to worry about doing this. If you're a beginner and your footage already looks normal and you've got some creative LUTs installed, go ahead and just skip to this creative panel, enable the section, and then in the look section, that's where we're going to select our creative LUT. Let's have a look at the 35mm look LUT. In the creative section, there's lots of different things you can play with. If you adjust these settings, you are engaging in the art of manual color correction. But today, we're just going to focus on applying LUTs. I can go back to this drop-down menu and select any creative LUT that I've installed into Premiere Pro. Let's go ahead and quickly take a look at all of these different LUTs. All of these LUTs are part of BJK Productions 20 Cinematic 4K Color Grading LUTs LUT Pack. In the last video on this YouTube channel, I showed you how you can get this LUT Pack for free. So go to the BJK Production YouTube channel and check out that last video. Check the link in this video's description for a link directly to that video where we gave away this free LUT Pack. I'm really liking the way the Cinematica Subtle LUT is looking. So let's go ahead and use that LUT. Now, as you probably noticed, the LUTs are looking really intense and they're making a big difference in the look of the image. One thing you should know about creative LUTs is creative LUTs are almost always intended to be used dialed back. So here in the creative section of the Lumetri color panel, we can choose how intensely our creative LUTs are being applied. By default, they're applied at 100%. People who make LUTs make them so they look extra intense. That way, you'll never be wishing they were more intense than they are, and you should be able to use the LUTs on any footage. However, the intention is that you would almost always dial back the intensity of the LUT. If we dial the intensity down to 0, that is how the footage would look if the LUT were not applied at all. Applying a creative LUT at 100% is almost always going to be too much, so much so that a professional might say the LUT looks distasteful. In Premiere Pro, it actually gives you the option of dialing up the intensity of a creative LUT to 200. I would imagine you'll almost never need to use a LUT at more than around 75%, and it may be best to use it at more like 50 or 30 or 20% intensity. Go ahead and play around with the intensity slider until you get a nice, subtle, and tasteful look from the LUT without it being overly intense. It can definitely help to check the way the image looks when it's magnified on screen. I'm also going to scrub through the timeline and look at different parts of the video and see how the LUTs look when they're on different frames. Let's see how this LUT looks on this image where we see this lady's face. I'm going to go back and I'm going to play with the intensity of the LUT. As you advance on your filmmaking journey, you will become more experienced and learn what looks tasteful and what looks over-processed when applying LUTs and adjusting their intensity. Feel free to have fun, make mistakes, and talk to your friends about what they think of your videos. The LUT you choose and the level of intensity will vary depending on what type of video you're going to create. If you're making a video about a birthday party, you might want to choose a LUT that makes the colors look vibrant, and you might want to apply that LUT at a little bit of a stronger intensity. If you're making a video about a solemn subject, then you might want to choose a bit of a moodier creative LUT, and you'll probably want to choose an intensity that's appropriate based on your artistic discernment. I would suggest choosing a creative LUT that matches the mood of your film and experiment with setting a LUT intensity that matches the emotional energy of your film. But feel free to play around, experiment, and don't be afraid to make mistakes. This is a skill that you'll develop over time, and you don't need to feel like you have to be an expert from the get-go. Have fun. And make sure to stay tuned to the BJK Production YouTube channel for more filmmaking advice and information on the amazing products from BJK Production. You can spend a long time trying out different LUTs, adjusting the intensity, and looking through your footage. I spent some time fine-tuning my LUT selection and dialing in the intensity before I started filming this video. What I discovered was that on this footage, I liked using the Art LUT from the BJK 20 Cinematic 4K Color Grading LUTs collection, and I liked the way it looked at 45.6 on the intensity scale. Let's go ahead and use these adjustment layers to apply those settings to all of these video clips. I've actually got two adjustment layers here. I chose to apply the technical LUT on the lower adjustment layer and the creative LUT on the upper adjustment layer. To do that, I did not need to create two different adjustment layers over here in my bins. I was able to drag the adjustment layer effect onto the timeline twice on different video levels. So if I disable the upper adjustment layer to make it invisible, you'll just be seeing the lower adjustment layer that has my technical color conversion LUT applied. And when I re-enable this adjustment layer, now you'll be seeing the creative LUT applied as well. Let's go ahead and scrub through this video footage. I think this is looking really stylish. If I wanted it to be more subtle, it would be easy just to go ahead and drag down the intensity slider a little bit more. But just for fun, let's go ahead and see what it looks like if I crank it all the way up to around 80%. Wow, that's looking heavily stylized. I'm going to dial it back down to around 50%. 50% is not necessarily a rule of thumb. I would say less is more when it comes to color grading and applying LUTs. But go ahead, play around, and see what you think. Dialing the intensity down to around 30% makes the LUT look a lot more natural on the footage, but it's still imparting a noticeable style, which is usually what you're going for when you're applying a creative LUT. There we go. I'm pretty satisfied at this point. I think it's looking really nice. And that's it. That's how you apply and adjust the intensity of a LUT in Premiere Pro. This is how you apply a LUT to a video clip inside of Final Cut Pro after you've already installed LUTs into Final Cut. First, go to the Effects browser and search for the Custom LUT effect. Apply the Custom LUT effect to the video clip in the timeline and open the Video Inspector. Make sure your video clip in the timeline is selected, and then you should see the Custom LUT effect in the video section of the inspector. Go to the LUT drop-down menu and simply select your LUT. If you've installed a collection of LUTs as a folder, you'll find your LUTs inside a group. In my case, all the LUTs I have installed in Final Cut Pro were installed within a folder, which means they're all in groups. Let's take a look at the 35mm look LUT that's part of BJK's 20 Cinematic 4K color grading LUTs package. I simply click to apply the LUT, and it's applied at its default settings. You always want to use the Rec. 709 setting unless you're a professional who knows exactly what you're doing and you have a specific reason for using a different setting. As long as the input and output are set to Rec. 709, the only things you need to pay attention to are which LUT you have selected and how much of that LUT is being applied. Technical LUTs are often meant to be applied at full intensity, but creative LUTs that are used to create a dramatic effect on the image, those are almost never intended to be applied at 100%. When you initially apply a LUT, it will usually come in at 100% intensity. With creative LUTs, you should almost always dial back the intensity so that you're only getting a subtle impression of the LUT. Applying too much of the LUT will make the image look over-processed, distasteful, and amateur-like. You'll want to play around with the intensity of the LUT so that it looks appropriate for your image. In some lighting conditions with some cameras, you may want to apply slightly more of the LUT or slightly less of the LUT. Play around with the mix slider until it looks good to your eyes. Let's set the mix to 50% and look through some of the various LUTs that were part of this LUT pack from BJK. Something like this Adidas LUT might look good at around 30 to 50% intensity if I was filming an action movie and this was an intense chase or fight scene. If I crank the LUT all the way up to 100%, it looks overly dramatized and distasteful. When a LUT is applied in a subtle way, it can look dramatic, enhance the story, and make your video come across as cinematic and professional looking. However, in this particular scene where I'm addressing the camera as part of a tutorial video, I think the image actually looks better without any creative LUTs applied. Figuring out when and when not to use LUTs and figuring out how intensely to apply creative LUTs is a skill that you will develop along your filmmaking journey. Feel free to explore, feel free to make mistakes, have fun, and stay tuned to the BJK Production YouTube channel for more video production advice and information on the amazing products from BJK Production. If you're using a video editing program other than Adobe Premiere Pro or Apple Final Cut Pro, I'd encourage you to explore YouTube. YouTube has an excellent community of video creatives who enjoy sharing their expertise with all kinds of different video editing software. BJK has plugins and tools for Adobe Premiere Pro, Apple Final Cut Pro, and DaVinci Resolve. Use promo code Emmanuel15 to get 15% off any order on bjkproduction.com. If you're watching this video near the time it's being posted, then it's the holiday season of 2024. Thanksgiving is right around the corner, and it's time for Black Friday and Cyber Monday savings. From November 23rd through December 3rd, you can use discount code Emmanuel40 to get 40% off any purchase on the BJK store. Go to www.bjkproduction.com and enter Emmanuel40 in the discount field at checkout. That's EMANUEL 40 with a capital E. Enter that code Emmanuel40 in the discount code field at checkout on www.bjkproduction.com. Thanks for watching, and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future videos.